dear Bagginses and Boffins.
So we start with the Vanity Fair article. This was a big deal. This was the only news we had back in the day. And one of the big insights we got from it was the showrunners talking about their process. And there was a quote saying that they wanted to write the book that Tolkien didn't write, or that he couldn't write. And people took that to mean that they were basically inserting their own worldview into the story. And then they were contrasting that with an interview Peter Jackson did back in the day for his original trilogy, where he says he deliberately went out of his way not to insert anything and to always just go with what's in the book when he could, because he didn't want any of his own baggage to muddle up the messaging of Tolkien. Whether or not you agreed or not with Tolkien, he didn't really care about that. He just wanted to present it in a authentic way.
Sure.
So this was a big issue for people. Do you have any, does this matter to you still? I don't particularly like this quote. I don't think it was a well thought out to say something like that at the time. And it's even still now. I think saying something like that, even if you don't mean it, it has like this egotistical thing about how you are able to just come in and basically become Tolkien. You can say that you're not telling his story exactly, and that you are doing a little bit on your own, but you can't say that you're basically writing Tolkien. If he were alive today, he would write this. You know what I mean? Like that, it's kind of a weird thing to
He
say.
almost certainly wouldn't. Yeah.
Well, and also just you see this all the time with people throughout history. People will try to co-opt them into whatever they're doing, and they'll start saying, well, yeah, if this guy were alive today, he would be on my side. And it's like, well, you can't do that. Like we have his writings. We can debate what his writings mean, but that's all we have, and we can't write our own stuff and then say, if this person were alive, he would write this too. You know what I mean? Like that, to me, that's a bit, that just stay away from that. Just write, say you're the writer and that you are interpreting Tolkien in this way. Like, I think that's a much better way to phrase it. It might still get some backlash, but I think
and we're trying to be consistent with what he has so far, something like that.
Yeah, but even if you're not going to do something like that, I mean, that is probably a way more diplomatic answer. But even if you are going to try to say, look, we're writing our own thing, it's going to be set in Tolkien's world, but we're writing our own thing. We think Tolkien will like it, but you can't say that you're writing the story that Tolkien would write today. Like, that's just a weird. It just you cannot just say you're that person now. Like, you're not. You're just a writer of this show. So I didn't like it, but it's not that big a deal for me. I think I want to first see the show, right? Like, I'm not ever going to say that they are the new Tolkien. Like, that's not going to happen because it's a completely different medium to start with. It's not even something to make sense of. But the show might be good. I want to give it a shot. So I'm not going to hold it against them that they had this weird like mindset when they were doing this interview. But what are your thoughts? Do you care about this interview they gave in the Vanity Fair article?
Yeah, just what you said too. Yeah, and that you said that they said that they wanted to tell the story he never told.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I could see, like, because there are stories that have come out, like what Children of Húrin, Beren and Luthien.
Yep.
All of Gondolin. I'd wondered why don't they go? There's also the Adventures of Tom Bombadil. That's also one too. It's like, why? Maybe they could have just told these stories instead.
Yeah, I thought.
I know there's difficulties about getting the rights, but.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
But there's also stuff that they could have done.
Yeah. Oh, and I think even if you didn't have, so here is the problem that I think I have, and I do have something to follow this up with, depending on if we have time, we'll put it in this video or the next, probably the next one. But there is a better way, I think, to telling this story. Peter Jackson had to compress his story down, and even at the time, people thought it was not the best thing to do. It ended up
Right.
working out in my view, but I can still see people who were reading the books thinking this is weird at the time. He compressed decades. This show is compressing hundreds, if not thousands of years. So there is something to be said about telling a small story in a big way. And I worry that they're going to tell a big story in a small way because they don't have the time to focus on certain aspects of it. And I think that's why also it doesn't make much sense to say that they're going to write the story Tolkien never did or never could, because he would definitely not compress it. He hated compressing it.
Yeah,
He would have made it
he-
longer. He would have made it hundreds of thousands of years.
He would have never finished it. It would
No,
have.
he would, well, that's the other thing, and I think that's what we'll leave this one is. He was always tinkering, and I am still on the fence about whether or not I like that or not. I want something to be finished, released, let it out into the world, and that's what it is. If you made a massive mistake, you can maybe make a correction in a next release. But he was always tinkering with his stories. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. I probably would have preferred the first TV show that's not the original trilogy or The Hobbit, based on some writing of Tolkien. I think I would have preferred it to be smaller scale and let it be charming and fun and grow, similar to how Game of Thrones started out small and charming and grew. They are going all in right away, basically trying to do everything so that there are no other shows to write within this age, right? Like they're basically trying to take all of it. So you cannot even just go and write about one aspect of this anymore and make it a show on Amazon because they've already covered it in this show. So yeah, I do think it was maybe too big of a scope, and I think that's obvious to everyone at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I regret to announce this is the end. I bid you all a very fond farewell.